everyone. Dr. Judy here, alive and well, and I am live on the show. Sorry about the last couple of weeks. It's been holiday season for me, so I did a couple of reruns, and one of them I hear didn't quite make it, so maybe we'll rerun the rerun, or you can always look it up. In any case, tonight's show is about COVID-19 and interconnection, which is what we need, and common sense, which I think is not that common. And this is a call-in show, everybody, so please feel free to call in. And that number is 323-524-2599. And we are all in this together. And so I want to start by saying that the mind map, for those of you who don't know me very well and haven't read the book, the mind map was originally a macro model for healing global disconnect. And more than any time ever, we're in need of healing global disconnect, because we're not going to make it if we don't make it together. This is not an I thing. This is a we thing. So let's talk about COVID-19 and take a leap into the macro with this, and talk about the mind map from a larger macro perspective. So we're just going to break it down this way. So panel number one is the light. We're all part of the light of humanity. And the shadows are all the things that cast doubt on the idea that we actually are one human race. And this kind of a splintering, the beginning of a splintering, is a metaphor for how we've splintered off into all kinds of different, I call them isms, which they're best expressed in panel number 5, but we'll get to the isms in a minute. I have behind me my mind map, which was so beautifully painted by a lot of people. So I just want to acknowledge the people who participated in making such a beautiful piece of art. It started out as a doodle and has expanded. And I'm so delighted that so many people are learning this system, because when we're in this state of confusion, when there's a lot of information thrown at us, we don't know who to listen to. We don't know who to believe, including me. I feel the same way. I see article after article, and then I see another article that contradicts the original article. And so why I'm doing this show called Common Sense is, at the end of the day, we have to trust our own common sense. The problem with that is that if we have a cracked lens of perception, and if we've been injured, I'll say at the causal level, which to me means that if we've been injured in our first few years of life, trust has been broken, and we can't even do the trust yourself thing. So let's go back to the mind map as a macro model and then go over it as a micro model. So the panel 1 represents a united humanity, and then the starting of the fracturing of the united humanity. So we went from an original we fracturing into me. And then this fracturing continued to create reactions in us, reactions that separate us from other people, reactions that have to do really with the primitive brain, the amygdala. And speaking of reactions, we're all living in a very, very scary time. And some of you have lost people. My condolences to each and every one of you who have lost an individual to COVID-19, or if you're right now incubating because you've contracted COVID-19. This is real. This is it's too real at this point. And so the reactions and our amygdala are directly related. And what does that mean? When we're in our amygdala, which is our emotional brain, it's hard for us to think clearly, and common sense goes out the window. And the further we get from the we concept as a global united humanity, the more we concentrate on the me concept, which doesn't really lend itself very well to looking out for your brother and your sister and your neighbor and so on and so forth. So if we go over to panel number 3, you can see that it represents a DNA strand. And this DNA strand, I'm going to use metaphorically from a macro perspective. It represents the core of the united self, the core of humanity. And you can see that the people on the DNA strand are, some of them are sitting around and lying around and hanging around, kind of like what a lot of us are doing because we can't go anywhere. So we're sort of sitting around and lying around and hanging around, and we're sort of locked in our prison, so to speak, our psychological prison, our physical prison, and that continues to reinforce that me mentality. So panel 3 is where the me solidifies and the we is gone. The concept of we is gone. And so what happens when it's me, when I have to look out for myself over looking out for the people around me also? I'm not saying you shouldn't look out for yourself. It's just that what happens is on a macro scale, if we're just going to be about me, sitting around, lying around, hanging around, and being at the effect of this pandemic, well, you can see we're going to fall into individual and global chaos. And then we're going to turn to our defense mechanisms, which many people are turning to. A lot of people are sitting at home drinking and smoking and arguing and projecting their anger onto other people and watching porn and all kinds of defense mechanisms that are meant to try to stimulate us or take our mind off of everything or protect our feelings in some way. It's just that at the end of the day, this kind of a fractured humanity that started in panel 1, it has now individuated into what I call isms. And isms are all the isms of the planet. The racism, the politicism, the fracturing of religions and races and nations and so on. And as we know, the COVID doesn't attack only white people or Black people or Christian people or Muslim people or Jewish people or any particular political brand of people. It knows no boundaries, okay? It knows no boundaries, which is a wake-up call, I hope, to all of you, that before we are an ism, we are human beings. We're human beings. And that's where we have to focus our consciousness of interconnectedness, consciousness of looking out for others, because if we don't, it's going to reverberate back onto us. And we know this because we now have information that the virus is shedding, and we don't even know if we're carriers or if somebody who looks very healthy around us is a possible carrier. So it's this kind of a mystery thing. And I really am very interested to know your comments about this, because you could see the development of this is that we've been in no psychological shape as a human race to do what we need to do, which is to come together as a united humanity. And so this mind map has predictive aspects in that if we don't find a way to interconnect, we're going to be breaking down, and we already are. And not only from the disease or the virus, we're breaking down because we're projecting our feelings onto other people, we're hoarding items that are needed by many. We're not exercising kindness and patience, although some of us are. So I acknowledge the people that are. And so this is really a test to everybody to see how you're showing up in the face of this pandemic, this chaotic and threatening and very, very scary time for so many people. At this juncture, I wish I was a scientist. I did study biology, and I turned the corner to psychology. And I'm not sorry that I did. It's just that I think we all wish that we had answers. And what's so surprising to me is that the answers and the solutions are so diverse. Nobody seems to be getting on the same page. So in my idealistic mind, I'm kind of wishing that we would have a global panel of scientists and philosophers and psychologists and politicians and economists that could get together and create a global solution to this, not just an American solution or a Spanish solution or an Australian solution. We need a macro picture of what's going on here, and we need people with macro vision who are not vested and invested in their own agendas, because the planetary agenda should be our only agenda, period. There's no way to keep the virus from jumping from country to country. And one of my viewers sent me an interesting article. And again, please check your sources, because we don't know. We just don't know how accurate these research papers are. But this is somebody who obviously is passionate about reaching out to me, knew that I was doing a show on the topic. And the name is D.E. Patterson. Thank you so much for this article. And the article is entitled, "Is the U.S. Ready to Go Back to Work?" And I want to scratch the word U.S. out and say, is the world ready to go back to work? Because although I understand that things flow through countries and territories, and we need to have some sort of a flexibility in responding to where everybody's at on the curve of the projection curve, we still need to have a global solution. And this is what the article is basically saying. After weeks of isolation and financial turmoil, a toxic mixture of economic fear and cabin fever have become systemic. So what that means from a mind map perspective is that we're losing the ability here to make sound judgment, because we're driven by our own needs, and they're real needs, not to discount the need to make money, not to discount the need for socializing. It's just that we have to use our common sense. At what cost? So really, I want to back this up and have you really think about the personal agendas of those putting information out. That's very, very important, because consciousness is causal. That's the first thing I say in my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. I talk about consciousness as being causal. Max Planck quotes about consciousness, and it's very, very important to come from the right consciousness. And if you're coming from the consciousness of fear and selfishness and discomfort with the current situation, we really are not putting on the common sense consciousness. Yes, I would love right now to be going to my yoga class and interacting with the people in my classroom. Yes, I would love going out to a restaurant. Most of all, I would love to see my little grandson and play with him. It's not happening. It's not happening. And it's tough. It's really, really tough to be away from people you love. And it's really, really tough. Even with my patients, it's really tough that I can't see them and offer them tea or coffee or sit with them and eye to eye and so on. And I know that the Zoom and Skype and phone is a very fortunate way that we can now interconnect. It's just not the same as human connection. So why I'm reading this is because we can't rush this thing. We can't say that, oh, I can't stand it anymore. I want to go to the beach. I can't stand it anymore. I want to see my children. Well, yeah, we do. We do want to go here and we do want to go there. It's just that we have to look at the big picture. Each one of us is potential carrier. Each one of us makes little mistakes. Maybe we touch something and inadvertently we touch something, we don't know what it is, and then we're carriers. And so what do we do about this? So I'll just go on with the article a little bit more. All right, so we're not psychologically prepared for something like this. And even more so, we're not psychologically prepared because as a human race, we're not doing very well. And how do I know this? I know this because so many people are hurting from a topic that I cover a lot about called narcissistic abuse. And what does that mean in terms of a system gone wrong? It simply means that primary caregivers shifted the system upside down and put their needs before the need of the child. And second of all, their consciousness behind parenting is a consciousness of selfishness, a consciousness of apathy. And so if we're raised by people like this, then we could potentially become like this ourselves and live in that selfish consciousness. And that's why we're not prepared for this pandemic, because we're not really all that healthy as a human race to put the we into the formula. So unfortunately, pre-pandemic levels of social interaction will only be safe after vaccines and medications for COVID-19 have been developed. Okay, so again, check the sources, and I'm not claiming to be a doctor or a scientist here. The best estimates place this around 10 to 18 months from now. Wow, 10 to 18 months from now. Well, I don't know if this is a fact or a guess. Who knows? It's just that what I do know is that it's too soon for us to let down our boundaries. And if you look at panel number 5, which is also a metaphor for boundaries, using cellular biology as that metaphor, you can see that some people have very tight boundaries, and that's the lockdown thing, and not only the physical lockdown, but the emotional lockdown. Some people have very loose boundaries, mainly because perhaps they've been violated, and so they let everything in. And so we, as a human race, don't have the same boundaries. Some of us are thinking, no, let's just loosen up. And some of us are thinking, no. We better stay put and buckle down and tighten up. We need a plan, a human race plan. And that's really what I'm talking about in a macro way. Okay, going on with this article. All right, 10 to 18 months from now. Well, if you can't even stand another day, obviously you don't want to hear about this article. It's not a pleasant thing to read that I'll be stuck in my house perhaps for 10 to 18 months more, or who knows how long. Lockdown may be responsibly lifted much earlier, etc. COVID-19 seems to burn through a newly exposed population quickly in the first 2 or 3 months. But here's the startling thing, okay? When I printed out the article, this is what caught my eye. Projected mortality here, okay? Look at that, okay? Wait, hold on, get that into, not doing a good job here. Okay, so here, let me read this to you. It says, death with continued social distancing, 91,000. That's a huge number. Deaths with a return to normal social contact, 870,000. Wow. That's like 9 times 9 is 81. So that's over 9 times. Wow. That's astounding. That's astounding. Okay, so who in their logical mind, in their common sense mind, wants to take the risk? So let's talk about who is prone to breaking these boundaries and who's not prone to breaking these boundaries, and how people have been showing compassion and interconnection, and many are, and especially our frontliners, our doctors, our nurses, the people who keep the cities going, the people who feed us and make sure that we're okay. I just want to give you a standing ovation. What can I tell you? And these are the people that that we're relying on, and these are good people to be relying on, because these are people with compassion. They're people who would put their life on the line for you and me. And so there would be an example of people who have empathy and are operating out of the consciousness of sharing and are operating out of the consciousness of the we. So look over here at panel number 7, and I know my chair is blocking it, but there it is, panel number 7. Well, there's the we panel, okay? And what happens when the I becomes substituted out for we? Well, what happens is that we're all in it together. And somehow, when there's synergy, which is the all in it together panel, we come up with creative solutions. So let's just compare and contrast. If you're an individual and you want to be all about yourself, which, I mean, we want the best for ourselves. It's just that what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, butterfly effect. The best for yourself may not be the best for yourself, because it comes around full circle. So if you infect another person because you really did want to go socialize with somebody, well, it might come back to bite you, or it might come back to bite one of your family members. So that's what I mean by interconnection. So we have to, at this particular time, really examine what it means to be a we, because in the way I see it, it's the only way we're going to survive. The we is the only way we're going to survive. So if we concentrate on the me, and we've all seen these videos, then we're pushing people aside and hoarding the groceries and the toilet paper. I guess that one's getting a little bit old. And we're hoarding this and that, and that's just not going to work. Just not going to work. I really am interested to hear from you. So please do call in 323-524-2599, and like to listen to your comments and discuss a little bit more about our vulnerabilities, our impulse, our lack of impulse control, our desire now to break out of the cage, to visit with each other, and to, we're sick and tired. But just because we're sick and tired of being in isolation, does that mean that we should base our behavior on how the me feels? That's what I'm getting at. We can't base our behavior on how the me feels, because now we've got the huge planet to deal with. But that's a big we. So please call in. I would love to hear where you're at. And I did a show a few weeks ago on relationships and the strain of the COVID on relationships. And if you're hunkered down with somebody that you don't particularly like, if they're being selfish, then it's going to reverberate harder on you, and I understand it. So this is the time for compassion. So please call in 323-524-2599. And in the meantime, I want to play you a little video that some of you have seen. Some of you have bought the Mind Map video series, and in one of the video series, I have a particular video called The Mind Map from a child's perspective. So this is my grandson many years ago, and me many years ago, teaching him the mind map, and he teaching me my mind map from a child's point of view. And why am I showing you this? First of all, he's adorable, so that's my selfishness. I miss him. And then the second part is that sometimes you have to break things down from a child's perspective. So let's get off our complicated way of seeing things and look at the mind map through a child's perspective. So whenever you're ready to roll the tape, go. Dr. Perlmutter, what's this?
Boo-boo.
The boo-boo. And what's this?
When it hurts.
When it hurts. And what's this?
When you feel like you're bad.
When you feel like you're bad. And what's that?
When you go crazy.
When everything's going crazy. And what's this?
When they push each other away.
When we push each other away. And what's this?
When we're hitting and fighting.
And we're hitting and fighting each other. And what's that?
Get along.
Getting along. And what's that?
Teamwork.
Teamwork. And what's that?
Peace.
Yay! Dr. Perlmutter, what should people do when they're not getting along?
Talk about it.
And use the peaceful healing dialogue so that when you have a problem and you don't want to go into panel number
6.
and you want to get to panel number
7.
you have to talk about it and use the peaceful healing dialogue, which is something that you can turn to in the Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect book.
I hope you learn the mind map so you can learn to have peace.
It's horrible watching him. I miss him so much. Anyway, that was Alexander many, many years ago, and me many years ago. And he's a lot bigger now and pretty smart little guy. And I hope that you were able to understand that from a mind map perspective, from a child's point of view, it starts with the boo-boo and the ouch. And then we blame ourselves. We think that we're bad. And then everything goes crazy. And then we push each other away. And then we fight and we hurt each other's feelings. And then we get along. And panel number 8, teamwork. That's what we need. We need to be in teamwork so that we can learn to have peace. So please do want to hear from you. And this is a child's perspective on the mind map. And the global perspective on the mind map is going from originally a sense of unity and breaking down and fracturing our united humanity. And we're still not doing a really great job of becoming united as a human race and being on the same page, because if we did, we would have much more synergy, and synergy creates light. If you look at panel number 7, you see the light emanating from panel 7. Well, if we weren't so me, and we were more we, then we would put our heads together and we would put our good intentions together, and we would be solving problems synergistically. And so what happens in the consciousness of selfishness is that this we doesn't really formulate. And then we're stuck in panel number 5, which is the kind of like the me panel. And there's not a lot of necessarily a lot of wisdom and a lot of interconnected creativity coming from that particular panel. I think we have a call in. And then we're stuck in panel number 5, which is the kind of like the me panel. Yeah, hi, you are on the couch. And who is this, please?
Hi, Dr. Judy. This is Allie. How are you?
Hi, Allie. How you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. Great topic as always. You're
Thank
so brilliant. I just love your treatment of various subject matter, and this has a global reach, just as the others do. It's just that this is of a virulent nature, which, as a matter of fact, as I'm thinking about it, that other personality dynamic seems to be very virulent in and of itself. So it's an interesting parallel, I think.
you. It's an interesting parallel, and I've been saying this for a long time. We have another virus that's eating
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's called the psychovirus, and the psychovirus
Psychovirus.
is the selfishness, the dis-ease that we experience from human disconnect, and this is our opportunity to
Yeah.
truly face human disconnect and find
Mm-hmm.
pathways to each other, whether we're sitting in our homes or apartments or wherever we are. We have to find pathways to one another. That's the only way we can enervate each other and
Mm-hmm.
and connect and create that light that we're so needing at this particular time.
Very true. Very true. Well, I wanted to call in because I happen to be sheltering in place with someone with whom I don't get along, and it's my what I believe to be a highly narcissistic, at least covertly narcissistic, traded mother, and we just clash in such heartbreaking ways, and I have to continue to remind myself it's not personal. However, it doesn't take the sting away any less, you know?
And when I talk about the me versus the we, it's virtually impossible to have a we consciousness with somebody who's selfish, with somebody who's demeaning and devaluing and trying to destroy the light of a relationship. And so,
Mm-hmm.
short of them feeling the need to do something about it, most of us are best served not to interface too much or at all with people like that. And I recognize the fact that you're living with your mother, so it's not like you can exactly ignore her, correct?
Right. And I was in the process of moving back to my house when a lot of this started to kind of come down the pike. And the stink eye that I get on a regular basis is just unnerving. It's so almost childish. However, it just I don't know what it is. I mean, only in the context of what this is does it even make sense, but it's completely nonsensical and very baffling. And because it's the nature of, I think, a child to yearn for the mother's connection or connection with the parent to continue to get rebuffed by just a natural tendency to be loving and to want to help and to interact is very upsetting. And I can't say that I guess I'm somewhat hurt by it. I'm more frustrated than anything, though. I'm more
Well,
frustrated than upset
I want you
and
to go back to
irritated.
your work with the mind map and review again what she's triggering in you, because lovingly, unkindly, ignoring your feelings, right? So we as
Right.
children tend to conclude, just like Alexander said, we're bad, we're bad, we're bad. And panel 3 is where that message gets encoded. And that's what I call the psychovirus, because virus and the psychovirus, whoo-hoo, okay, that's like a mega explosion right there. And that's what's so important to
Mm-hmm.
heal individually, because until we become softer and kinder and more empathic and not feed people emotionally who don't give light back to us and allow others to vampire our energy and waste that energy when we could be interfacing with people who do care, who do make a difference in the world, and who do care on a micro scale and a macro scale. Until we do that, we're going to be imploding because we don't know where to put the anger. And then some of us
Mm-hmm.
imploding so hard that we turn to such breakdowns, such as cutting ourselves or ultimate breakdown, of course, is the suicide. And then the other end of it is projecting onto others and not knowing what to do with the anger. And then homiciding. Okay, so panel 6 is the extreme version of panel 6 is that. And so if you take this particular COVID environment that we're in, and then we have a lot of people who are imploding and exploding and have no impulse control and have no boundaries and are selfish. And I'll never forget this particular video that I was watching, and I know that there are lots out there. Some man was spitting into containers at the supermarket. I think it was hair dye, something like that. It was just so sad and so aggressive, and then people using the virus as a tool to sneeze on groups of people expressing their racism through being a human virus carrier. I mean, this is just it's beyond horrible. It's beyond
aberrant behavior.
Right? And while you're sitting there doing nothing, how about do something? And that's why I want everybody to learn the mind map. I've made it very affordable. Seriously, everybody, for $97, you get a whole coaching session and all of the 9 panels delivered by me and a little bit by my grandson, as you saw a clip from it. And you can learn.
So adorable, by the way. So cute.
Thank you.
So smart too. Yeah, very, very intelligent little boy.
So smart. And can't wait to get him back on the show live at some point when we're through this. But we're not going to get through this with a me attitude. We're only going to get through this if we heal as much as possible individually, so that we can have a heart. We can have the empathy to care about other people, because if we don't care, then who cares? It's fun at the beach. Let's go. It's about me. Who cares? Let me just meet up with my girlfriends or my relatives, or who cares? It's all about me, and we can't afford to do that anymore. We never could afford to do it, but this is just putting it in our face even stronger.
Yeah, it's so interesting. This is one of those times where we realize the interconnectedness of it all, because no one makes it out alive alone anyway. I guess you can certainly cross over or transition or pass and by yourself, but my point is, this is a life where we depend on one another, even in the most minute ways. And it's been beautiful because it really allows us an opportunity to realize that no man is an island, and we do really rely on one another, whether we have an elderly neighbor or someone with a disability in the community, in the neighborhood, who can't get out. But if we're going out to the store, we can certainly look out for Mrs. Johnson or something like that, Mr. Smith, and get some water, get some paper products, or make a meal, share a meal. However, it's unfortunate because there's clearly the need to create boundaries, whether it be through gloves or a mask or what have you. And it's so interesting how it's almost an easier inclination to be more loving and kind to strangers or to neighbors. Again, we don't have that baggage with them. We don't have that history, because what's so, I guess, mind-numbingly frustrating for me is how I go the extra mile to take good care, to write out lists, to write out prompts, to be mindful about, it could be protocol prompts at the front door with the mail with regard to how long we need to let certain things set before we interact with it, whether it be paper, plastic, metal objects, or whatever the case may be. My point is, there's such this almost flashpoint of an anger energy. It just seems to, I don't know, erupt out of almost nowhere. And I'm thinking, what was that about? But when she tells,
Right. It's so
When she
important.
talks to her friends about it, it's kind of funny, but she completely tells a very different version. She tells a very neutralized version of what happened. She doesn't mention she basically blew my hair back with, her tone, energy, and just anger, and the outburst was over the top. She never says that. It's
That's
almost as
the
if, oh yeah.
Right, that's the human disconnect, because if you don't know your impact on another human being, then you could do whatever you want because you're not feeling the pain. Having empathy means that you feel the pain of another human being, which is why we're so fortunate to have all these beautiful doctors and nurses and police officers, firemen, and people who cook the food and pick up our trash and bag our groceries and so on. We're so fortunate. Yes, of course, they have the need to make money. That goes without saying. But at the end of the day, they're people that give service to other human beings. So what I'm inviting you to do, since you're already cooped up with your mother, is to go back over your panel 3 and see what she's activating in you. Because if you dismantle these negative core beliefs, which are based on lies and misperceptions, if we dismantle them, then they're no longer trigger happy points. They no longer lead us down the path of what I call the WTF, which is 4, 5, 6, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And speaking of defenses, right, I know that there are a lot of people out there that are drinking more or smoking more. And by the way, I did write a book on quitting smoking called Dr. Judy's Habit Breakers Stop Smoking Plan. That was back in the day. I had a stop smoking clinic called Habit Breakers. And now would be the time to quit smoking. I was always very passionate about people quitting smoking. So now would be the time to quit smoking. And I actually have a book that has the mind map in it and has a plan for you to quit smoking if you are smoking, which during this time is just the deadliest. So speaking of panel 5, if we're going to be me, then let's concentrate on a healthier me. So I'm trying really hard to watch what I put in my mouth. And lately it's been vegetables and salmon and a lot of salad and omelets and protein drinks. And I should drink a lot more water and try to work out a little bit, although it's hard to do it inconsistently, taking my dogs for a long walk, wearing the mask, making sure that I social distance from my neighbors, and just doing my part. And it's never going to be perfect, you guys. It's never, you just don't know. You could step in something or touch a leaf that somebody, you can go crazy with this, but we just have to understand that we have to do the best that we can. So that crazy number that somebody sent me, deaths with continued social distancing in the US, 91,000, and deaths with a return to normal social contact, 870,000. Now, I don't know who did these calculations. I'm assuming that the person who wrote this email wants the best, because he actually bothered to reach out to me before the show and give me this article, put it in my hands. But there are a lot of different sources of information. And at this particular time, I would rather trust the doctors and the scientists who are doing the research and don't have an agenda. Because the minute you have an agenda, right, if you have a money-making agenda, or you have an agenda to boost yourself, elevate yourself at the expense of somebody else, then that source isn't really, really healthy and valid, and it lacks integrity. And the only way to use our common sense is to do the best that we can to source people who are of integrity. Because if we source people who are of integrity and we deem them our information sources, then certainly we're better off than just buying into just anybody's source of information. So we've got to be really, really careful and, and check our sources, right? And then we've got to self-care so that we don't fall into depression, we don't fall into anxiety, we don't fall into defense mechanisms like drinking more and overeating and so on. And why not use this opportunity as a time to exercise more? I'm trying. I just downloaded one of these exercise things. I used to do P90X back in the day, so I thought, oh, Beachbody. Okay, well, I'm a lot slower at doing the workout. I did do like 15 minutes of it, and I took a walk with the dogs. And so I'm trying, and then I've got a little weights, and you do what you can, but you just can't let yourself go. And imagine if during this isolation period, if we emerge with better habits and we emerge with more mental health and wisdom. Myself, that right now, I don't want to be eating animals. I just don't, with this whole wet market thing. And I'm just a real big animal lover, and I just don't want to be a part of the meat industry. So
that's right.
Back to, fish and vegetables and some dairy products. And, I've got to kind of wind it down slowly, but I'm off of the meat and chicken and turkey. Not that I'm telling everybody that they're wrong for eating this. Of course, you do what's healthy for you. It's just that it's a time to really, really self-reflect and carve out a new way of being, a new way of seeing. And we're going to look back at this time, hopefully soon, and kick ourselves in the butt and say, why didn't I work out harder? I have the time. Why didn't I read more? I have the time. Why didn't I take better care of myself and have hot baths and so on and so forth? I have the time. So take the time. You've got the time. So take the time. And
that's right.
Especially to connect with the people that you love. How many times did you say, I don't have time to call my aunt or my uncle or my brother or my sister or play with the kids or invent a story? There's so many really wonderful videos. I saw one. It was about a little boy that was missing McDonald's. It was his birthday, I think, and he wanted to go to McDonald's, and the father was so cute about it. He put together this whole setup with a little car and little pieces of tape on the floor to simulate a road, and then he taped a video of himself saying, "Can I help you, sir? What would you like?" And then I don't know how it was so cute. I almost died right there. And he simulated this whole thing, and then he came out and he served his son the little container with the, would you like French fries? Would you like this? And, everything was all there for him. And then there was a similar one where the kids were really wanting to go to a restaurant, and the parents simulated a restaurant, and they said, "What would you like, sir? And, here's your menu." And it was adorable.
Nice.
Absolutely adorable.
Nice.
Right? So
yeah,
this is our time.
Yeah, definitely. This time seems to bring forth and really give, it seems to midwife new habits. That's what I'm using this time for, to really cultivate a richer, better, more conscientious self with greater skills, with greater resilience, with greater empathy, with greater everything, really, everything positive. And I'm already plant-based. However, the exercise has fallen off, and but that doesn't mean that I can't do what I can with what I have where I am. And we don't need a fancy gym membership. We don't need fancy, a home gym or anything like that. We can live water bottles. We can do squats. We can do leg lifts while washing dishes. We can, do some modified crunches. We don't have to get on the floor. We can do, reverse crunches in a way. But my point
Absolutely.
is,
Just
we
at
all
the
can
edge
do
of your bed,
something.
you can do that, right? And I found
Definitely.
out that I love getting my nails done, but you know what? I also love having nails that are just fresh and clean and short, and there's nothing wrong with it. And they're all nice and clean and grown out now. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
really need a manicure. I could just put my own manicure together, and I'm very lucky because I'm a Paul Mitchell graduate, so I could do my own hair. And if I really
Oh,
need to
nice.
give myself a little
Very
haircut,
nice.
I can get online and do a refresher course. And don't do this, okay? Because you could really screw up your hair by doing your own haircut. What my point is to utilize your talents now. If you're an amazing cook, then experiment with healthier ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using almond
That's right.
flour. I want to try to make almond flour cookies. Never done that before.
Oh, that sounds yummy. Oh, yum. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, all it requires is almond flour. You could use instead of milk, you could use flaxseed milk, and you could use a little baking powder, and you could put raisins or organic chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips in there, and just have at different recipes. And so we will kick ourselves in the butt someday and think, why don't we take the time to, for me, it's draw more. I used to do a lot of art. So now I'm just starting to draw a little bit more, and just, every day, even if it's on a scratch piece of paper, just moving the pencil around, and having colored pencils like that, around, so that I could do. Right. So whatever it is that you do, whether you write, or you play an instrument, or you cook, or you tell stories to your children, or create anything, what a precious time that we'll never get back, where we will actually miss time to do things that we normally don't have time to do.
That's right. And I actually see this time as a renaissance of sorts, a rebirthing, a reset, a global reset, and on so many levels. And I'm not going to get into all of that on the air. However, the bottom line is, if not now, when? And we have no excuse, because we have nothing but an abundance of time. And this is probably going to be unprecedented. If not now, when? And if not now, then will we have ever made the time? I think it's a matter of how much do we love ourselves? How much do we regard our value? Do we see ourselves as worthy to, number one? And I'm actually just thinking about, I need to contact your office, because this is a perfect time to set a powerful intention to truly heal myself, heart, body, mind, soul, spirit, and energy of this narcissistic abuse stuff. Why not now? This is a perfect, moment in time that seems to be kind of cloistered off from others, where this is almost like we've hit the pause button in a sense. We're going a little slower than normal. This is a perfect time to do the work to heal, so that we're not continuing to recycle this toxicity, where we take it forward into our future.
And if you want a place just to share your ideas, email me. Sometimes we need a place just to say, hey, look what I made. Take a picture of the cookies that you baked, or the new recipe, or send me a little story that you read to your child or your grandson. I'll share it. Let's make it so that you give me something that is loving and creative and interesting. Then I have the way to share it with everybody else. And so feel free to write me, Dr. Judy, drjudy at Psychological Healing Center. And no, I'm not dying here. I swallowed wrong, so hope I don't get a lot of letters saying, "Oh, Dr. Judy, are you sick?" And I'm not sick. I'm just kind of a little bit clumsy. I just dropped my little clipboard, but So we just have to be a little bit kinder to ourselves, and in order be a better we also have to be a better me. So I'm not saying we at the expense of me. I'm saying the opposite. Build yourself
That's right.
up, clean yourself up psychologically, clean out your psyche so that you can be in good shape, and then your bandwidth for helping other people can increase. Because if you're home and oversleeping and drinking and watching too much television and so on and so forth, and reading too many articles about COVID, well, then what kind of a shape are you going to be in to help people? Just can't do it.
There's no way we can be the best version of ourselves that way. We just cannot.
Right.
We cannot. And so I like that idea that you just shared. I'm taking that on as a challenge. You know,
Yeah,
we could call this the sheltering in place challenge or whatever, you know, name you want to give it. But a lot of times challenges inspire people to action, or maybe not challenge because I'm in the conscious language. So it almost seems like an affront to my well-being. So the opportunity, you know, instead of the challenge, what is the opportunity that we're leaning into?
Yeah.
And share that.
Just to reiterate, I'm challenging people to think more globally, to think about your ability to help other people. It could be small acts of kindness. It doesn't have to be revolutionary. And I'm also eager to hear about creative and interesting ideas on how to be a better and more productive part of the human race. And you can always share that with me, because I know people are listening in Spain and Italy and Australia and all over the world, And so I want to hear more global solutions. I really do, because you can't be thinking just Americans or Canadians, or, you know, it's time to think as a human race. So I really want to hear human race ideas, global solutions to a global problem.
That's right. And the ripple effect is real. You know, every little drop into the pond ripples out, emanating from wherever that point of deposit into the pond was. And then when it reaches the edge of the border, it ripples back, so that basically almost like a karmic, you know, I guess, effect, like a boomerang. When we throw it out, it comes back to us. So that's exactly what happens with the ripple. The ripple effect emanates outward, but it also reverberates back to us, to the source of whatever was deposited to create the ripple in the first place.
That's right. And so now if not when if not now do we start thinking globally? When if not now? Right. So you're all welcome to communicate with me and reach out, and we have people who are on the team who are fabulous, and you can have that coaching session and the mind map video series for $97 to sit there for a few weeks and go through the panels and really heal, and also to have a live coach talk to you about how to concentrate your energy on healing. And then if you can't even afford that, fine, just get a free copy of my PDF of the book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, and listen to all the YouTube episodes I have out there. I must have about 400 or so of them up there on YouTube. And then there's just a lot of blogs on my website that you can read. So if you're really, really tight financially, there's a lot of free stuff that's available to you as well. Okay, and then we're now uploading the narcissistic abuse, the healing from narcissistic abuse video is now ready, so you can ask about that. And it's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little different from the mind map video series in that we go right to the core of the apathy, right to the core of the consciousness behind the narcissistic abuse. And it's pretty deep. I'm real happy with it. It's Epstein. was he hosted, narrated the episodes, and it's all predicated on the mind map. So I'm going to keep showing up for you guys, okay? Please show up for each other. I can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. So please be in touch, and let's do it together.
Will do. And let me mention this also as a plug, if you will. I happen to go on Amazon. I did purchase your book, and I've been promoting it. I wanted to mention that the book on the smoking cessation, I saw that in one of the reviews, one of the purchasers and readers of the book said it was excellent and was not just applicable to smoking cessation, but to basically kick most any addiction, you know, because some of the principles of cessation were the same. So I don't have a smoking addiction. I don't really have an addiction, but it could be used for other behavior.
Cross out the word smoking. So I know we're out of time. I really appreciate you getting on the call.
Judy.
But, I know
I appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
Feel free to share the video with the school, okay? And all of you feel free to share the book, the Be the Cause PDF. You can just post it on your Facebook and people can grab a free copy. So that's available. So thank you so much for calling in. Thank you everybody for listening. And let's be the cause of a better outcome for our world. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.